I'm Jay Leeming, and I'm a performance storyteller from the Finger Lakes region of upstate New York. In this video, I'm going to talk about stories as maps, seeing them as maps, using them as maps. Now, what is a map? Well, a map shows a territory, of course, and it shows you where you are and where other things are. It shows you your relation to them, the distance to them. It shows you where you could go and how you would get there, right? So a map, stories as maps. So there's this idea of the unconscious, right? We are complicated individuals, us humans, and we have things we are conscious of, things we are not conscious of. Even now, you're watching this video, there is probably a sound happening in your environment, perhaps, not definitely, but probably, which you are hearing, but you are not focusing on it as much, perhaps, as on this video. But your ears are still hearing it, but it is still there. It is below the threshold of consciousness, we might say. And as beings, as people, there are things we think of consciously, we know, we think about, and other things which sink down into the sea of who we are, the ocean. They are there, but they aren't immediately expressed. This concept of the unconscious came around through a lot of reasons, but largely through the work of Freud, Sigmund Freud, the psychologist. He found that people he was helping to live better and more harmonious lives, parts of them were unconscious, they didn't quite, they had desires and thoughts and ideas which were not fully present in the light of the day, but they were there and they were guiding their lives in many ways, affecting their lives. Following him, Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, also found this. Jung dealt with people who had pretty severe problems, who were often delusional, they were schizophrenic, they would hear voices, they would have what we would call fantasies, things which were demonstrably untrue. There's a woman who recurringly had the idea that she was trapped by vampires on the moon, for example. So Jung, as opposed to Freud, dealt with some very intense problems in the people he was seeing, and they would give him these fantasies they had, which often they thought were fact. I'm being hunted down, I'm being pursued, or whatever. And he would wonder how to deal with these things, these fantasies they had. And he found that stories from around the world, from other cultures, often shed light on this. The woman trapped by vampires on the moon. Well, here's a story from the Inuit culture about a woman held by the dead on the moon. The moon, they're keeping her prisoner on the moon, for example. So these stories he saw, they are a connection. You connect these two things, right? These stories are, in a way, they describe mental states which he was seeing in his patients right there. And so they were of tremendous help to him. This led him forward to think about a collective unconscious. That means a group of patterns which are common to all of us humans. Now, we like to think that we're free. We love that, especially in America. I'm free. I can do whatever I want. Yes. And there is freedom in this world, of course. But what we're talking about here are patterns which govern our lives, often in ways we do not perceive. For example, the hand. We've got this thumb and these fingers, beautiful thing. You can put a glove on that hand. You can put a scuba outfit on. You can change that hand in all kinds of ways, but still humans have these hands with the 5 fingers there, and that can't be changed. It's not a claw. It's not a fin. In the same way, these patterns govern our lives, and they're instinctual. They are inside us. You can use the analogy of a piano as well. A piano has 88 keys. You can play a lot on a piano. Anything you want. You're free to play whatever you want. But a piano will never sound like a trombone. So these patterns he found in the collective unconscious, which are there for all humans pretty much, and govern our lives. One such pattern, for example, would be what is often called the hero's journey. Someone, a man or a woman, leaves a place of safety, goes to a place which is unknown, and then returns with some sort of magic, some sort of power, some sort of skill which they did not have before. A power, a magic, a skill, which then helps the community which they left, right? So the community is there, it is safe, you leave that, you go find something out there which the community needs, and you return. We can see this all over the place. In pop culture, we see it in something like the Star Wars story, right? Luke departs from Tatooine, and he eventually returns 3 movies later, able to deal with the Empire, the bad things there. Lord of the Rings, in some ways, similar. There's a lot of world building there, as it is called, but Frodo leaves the Shire, eventually comes back, and is able to help in the scouring of the Shire, right? And they clean that place out. Spoiler alert. The Water of Life is a Grimm's fairy tale with a sick king and 3 sons. And the youngest son goes off, he gets the Water of Life, and he returns to heal the king. So this is a pattern which is present in our lives. I've felt it in my own life. I grew up in one place, I left, and I came back. And I studied poetry in New York City and in Minnesota, for example, and then returned, bringing back with me a skill I had developed. There are other patterns as well. And so, I mean, the pattern of someone going to war and coming back, for example. That happens all the time. But a story like the Odyssey is like a map. It's a map of that process of returning from a war. He spends 10 years in the realm of fighting, death, struggle, weapons, all that stuff, conflict. And then he departs, and before he makes it home, Odysseus must wrestle with the feminine powers of this world, both in the form of actual women, human women, and then in the form of goddesses, and then in what we might call the feminine powers of the earth, water, sleep, and darkness. He wrestles with these, and as a result is able to integrate back into society, but not without some serious trouble along the way. So a story like the Odyssey is, again, a ritual map, in a way, of the journey anyone returning from combat needs to take. And the Grimm's fairy tales as well, that's why I call them maps, and other people have seen them as maps. I have been lucky enough to find myself in some of these stories and have my life enlarged as a result. Far from feeling confined by these patterns, I have felt liberated and relieved, because what I'm going through is what other people have gone through as well. So much so that there are stories about it. I will also just mention the passage from childhood to adulthood, and from adulthood to being an elder. These are patterns which are universal among humans and are expressed in stories. So humans see these patterns in the world and they put words on it. They describe it in words, well, really in images, and then the images become words. So in that sense, a story can be a map, and we are very lucky to have these maps, and they can teach us a lot. And I am grateful for their presence in my life and in yours as well. So I invite you to see stories as maps and to drink the seriously good magical water that is in these traditional stories. Thanks so much for watching this video, and take care.